Hi, it's Andrew Swanscott here, and I'd just like to start by saying Happy New Year. I hope you've had a great holiday season, and I wish you all the best for 2017. Now, you may be wondering what this episode is about since it's outside of my normal podcast schedule, so let me explain. A couple of weeks ago, I was reading a blog post that seemed to go on forever, and I found myself saying, just get to the point already. I'm sure we've all been in that situation before, and sometimes you just want a short bit of information so that you can get on with your lives. 2 days ago, I was out doing some exercise on my bike, and I was actually thinking about that blog post and came up with an idea, or maybe it's more like an experiment, to start a new segment which I've given the slightly awkward and completely unimaginative name, Thursday Trading Thoughts. So what is Thursday Trading Thoughts? Well, you can probably guess by the obvious name, but it's going to be a very short weekly podcast episode I'll release every Thursday, in addition to the full podcast episode I release every 2 weeks. The idea is to make it really short, probably around 5 minutes in length, where I'll share a trading thought or idea either from myself or a special guest, and we'll just have a quick chat about a trading tip or insight or answer a question or something like that. It's just a small chunk of bite-sized information, sort of like a little trading snack. Now, as I mentioned, this is an experiment. I'll give it a try for the next 8 weeks and see if it's any good. If it's a crap idea, then I'll stop. Otherwise, I'll consider continuing on with it. So if you have any questions, ideas, or feedback for this segment, then please email me and let me know what you think. Also, if you've got a better name for this segment, which probably isn't going to be very hard to come up with, let me know, because if you submit a name for this segment and I use it, you'll get a prize. How about that? Anyway, this is going to be the first Trading Thoughts Thursday session for the year, and today I'm going to share with you something we can learn from a famous airline pilot. One of the things I enjoy about the holiday season is that I get to catch up on movies, and a movie that I noticed on Apple TV just the other day was a movie called Sully, which is the story of Captain Sullenberger, or Captain Sully as he's often referred to. For those who don't know who Captain Sully is, he was an airline pilot who was flying out of, I think it was LaGuardia Airport in New York. This was a few years ago. And his plane flew through a flock of birds and he lost power to both engines, which was pretty unfortunate. But what made the situation even trickier was that he didn't have enough speed or altitude to make it back to any of the closest airports to land. So he decided to attempt a water landing in the Hudson River instead. Now, incredibly, he managed to land the plane and everyone survived. Anyway, as I was watching the movie, I was reminded of a reference to Captain Sully in one of the previous podcast episodes. So once the movie finished, I looked it up and I found it in episode 27 with Dr. Gary Dayton. And there he makes a reference to the emotional response that Captain Sully experienced during the ordeal and how this can apply to traders. So let's just have a quick listen to what Gary said there. Yeah, I think you had an excellent example in your book about the US Airways flight that hit the flock of birds and was forced to land in the Hudson. Mm-hmm. Can you share perhaps the story or the lessons from the captain's response to that incident?
Sure. It was big news a few years ago when he took off from LaGuardia Airport in New York and flew over the city and managed to hit a flock of geese, and they got into the jets and stopped the engines from running. And he knew it immediately. And he tried to, assess his situation. There were local airports in New Jersey and also in New York, but he was at such an altitude and at such a speed that he knew immediately that he wasn't able to bring the plane to one of those alternate emergency landing spots. And his only choice was to put it into the Hudson River. Now, this was March, and the river was choppy. It goes into the ocean, into Long Island Sound. And it was interesting because there was a Good Morning America broadcast interview of him a week or two after this event. And Katie Couric, who was interviewing him, asked some really interesting questions, some insightful questions. She said, well, Captain Sullenberger, were you concerned about the passengers? Were you thinking about praying for them? And he said, well, no, there were people there. The crew was there to deal with the passengers, and I figured the passengers themselves were praying. What my job, he said, was to level the wings, get the nose at the right attitude, bring my airspeed down, not too low, but not too high, and try to gently bring this plane into the drink, as we would say here, into the river. He said something that was really telling. He said the physiological response I had to this was enormous, meaning that he was scared and that he felt it in his body. When we become frightened, three things happen. Our minds get focused in on the threat. Our emotions swell up within us, that fear, that trepidation, that apprehension, and that all the way right to abject terror. And our body responds. This is part of the fight-flight syndrome. We start to get muscle tension. We start to get sweaty palms, clammy palms. Our stomach might churn. We get dry mouth. It feels very uncomfortable. And he noted those. Sullenberger, Captain Sullenberger. Think about it. If you were in a plane and you had 135 passengers and crew on board, and you're holding their life in your hands, and you had never done this before. He had trained for it, but he had never done it before. He was scared. And he said it took all of his focus, all of his effort to keep focused on the right things. The leveling of the wings, the attitude of the nose, all of those things that a pilot does. And then he successfully landed. But he was scared, totally scared, but did it anyway. And that was the point. He didn't try to suppress his fear. If he did that, he would have taken his attention off of what was important. And what was important at that time was to land that aircraft and all the technical things he had to do to accomplish that goal. So focusing on the fear would have been the wrong thing. That's what we all do. To bring it into trading, that's kind of what traders do. We focus on the fear. We try to suppress it. We try to get rid of it. And therein lies the rub. We get distracted off of our trade. Our focus goes internal to our, the body sensations, the emotions that we feel. And it causes us to cut a trade short or not pull the trigger, or ironically hang on to a losing trade until it becomes so painful that we have to take the loss. But we get distracted from good trading. And ironically, what happens is that we repeat this pattern over and over and over again. And it's not only is it unworkable, but it causes traders to really never learn how to manage themselves and manage their trades properly. And so they get caught into this vicious cycle where they have the fear response, their attention goes inside, they try to deal with it, and they never really learn how to trade well. And that's unfortunate, but that's what happens to the majority of traders that I've worked with anyway.
So I think Gary's raised a couple of important points here that we may want to consider. One that really stood out to me was the importance of focus and controlling what we actually focus on. Now, Captain Sully felt fear, understandably, but he didn't try to suppress it because that would have actually taken focus, but rather he put all of his effort into focusing on the important tasks that were critical in producing a positive outcome. Now, we may never be in a situation where people's lives depend on our actions, but being mindful of our focus or where our focus is can be critically important to the outcome, whether it's in a trading scenario or in any other endeavor. I also found a number of other insights from watching the movie. However, I don't really want to spoil the storyline for those who haven't seen it yet. So if that's you, I do recommend you go and check it out. So if you have seen it though, what insights or lessons did you get from watching it? I'm interested to hear your thoughts, so head on over to bettersystemtrader.com/67 and leave a comment at the bottom of the page in the comments section. I hope you found something of value in this very short episode, and I'll catch you in just a few days' time for the next episode of Better System Trader. Bye for now.